never does justice to these monsters. But we're gonna zoom in a little bit. You may or may not be able to see chunks of decay coming out of it. This old scarlet oak doesn't look that big from back here, but man, it's the tallest tree in the forest, and being on a hill makes it look even taller. I mean, looking at it from here, it looks like it's like 150 feet tall. I don't think it's that tall. Like I said, it's on a hill, but it's probably at least 120. And it's dead. And it's like 36 or 40 inches diameter at the base. So it's a big boy. And there's no trees beside it that are tall enough to rope into as an escape plan. So it just has to be climbed the good old conventional style. Yep. We're gonna use the tree stuff, air-powered tree access gun. You need a bicycle pump with it. You could probably make your own. I don't know if I would pay what tree stuff is asking, but it is a nice little tool to have. If you have a big shot though, you're pretty much set with a big shot. You don't gain a whole lot more with the app whatever, I don't know how to pronounce it. But anyways, they are nice to, I don't hardly ever use it. I normally throw by hand, but when you're in woods like that and you got roto all around the base, you can just fire right through. And even though we're doing a removal, we're gonna be, we will be throwing spikes on, or I should say I will be throwing spikes on. I think Ben's gonna throw spikes on. But it's a lot easier to rope walk that distance, and it will make less motion as well. So the less motion we have, if I can rope walk to that first major crotch and just be sounding it as I go with a drill, I'm gonna be checking it along the way. And anyway, it'll make a lot less movement. Then when I get into the crown, that's when we'll start cutting it into smaller pieces. So here's a nice long bit, little DeWalt 20 volt power drill. Does just fine. That'll check the wood for us. And then these slings are Amsteel blue, I think 1/2 inch diameter. I'm gonna take a couple of these with me, as I'll explain. They'll help keep me safe while I'm making really big cuts up there as well. Pump this to 150. Got to pick a throw ball that will be fat enough to restrict all the space. You can't have like a thin throw ball, because then the air will just go all around it as it's firing. And you gotta open up this butterfly valve really fast. Aim a little higher than you expect. Oh, and make sure that your throw line is flaked really well so that you don't have a bunch of birds' nests come out. From here, I can do double throw line technique to isolate the crotch that I want. Trusty pile hitch comes undone very easily, even after hard pulling. I'm not sponsored by Bartlett, but they do make a good throw cube. If I can just get that out. They make a good throw cube. I had to repair that Velcro though. But at least the little poles don't poke through the corners like they do on those Weaver cubes. All right, so 2 options here. We could either do a canopy anchor or we could do a base tie. I'm gonna do a base tie, but I wanna get around that. I wanna get around that big stub there because I wanna climb up the backside of the tree, and I don't wanna be right underneath all this crown here that could break out on me. Come on. Oh.
Oh, I got it. There it is. Now I just need to not lose it. There we go. We've got it. Let's do a base tie. Base ties do create force multiplication on your anchor, so be aware of that if you opt for a base tie. But the reason why I'm gonna do a base tie instead of trying to send up a choke in this case is because I'm on like a really heavy crotch, really big crotch, so I'm not worried about the force multiplication on it. And if I do a running bowline or something and try to choke it up there, then it might get snagged on a stub and not go all the way up as far as I want it to go up. So that's my reasoning. All right. There we go. Oh boy, you see, now I've really thought this through on which way I'm approaching my crown here. All right, I'm not just wandering up the crown aimlessly, or wandering up into the crown aimlessly. I'm not gonna climb on that other side. Look at all that. Look at all that those dead limbs that are laying on that side. You can't tell probably with my video resolution, but the left side is much more heavily rotted than the right side, so I'm not as worried about the side that's like hovering over me. I'm much more worried about the side going out that way. So this is why I'm gonna approach with this line the way I have it here. Okay, mitigating the risk as much as possible. All right, saying our prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to work. We praise you. We ask that you keep us safe and let us work to glorify you. In Jesus' name, amen. Here we go. I think the only saw that I'm gonna use is, yeah, the 261, like right from the get-go. I'm not even gonna waste time with the 201 on this one. Those cuts are pretty big. Let's lay back. And let's put in our chest and off we go. Ooh, small piece just fell out on me. Let's get into the trunk though. I really don't like that. Being out in free space gives me flashbacks to my accident. Being out in free space. So, I'm gonna lanyard to it and try not to make too many big motions. But anyways, now we can rope walk with the lanyard as well. That's tons of resistance. So the sapwood is definitely rotting, but that heartwood feels pretty strong still. This tree's probably not as dangerous as I'm making it out to be. Let's take another reading. That's a lot of resistance. Yeah, lots of resistance. Good. Nice and solid. It can change drastically up there. Which is why it's important to take some readings along the way. Come on now. There we go. Don't want to make this thing bounce around too much. Still tons of resistance there with the drill. Yeah, it goes in easy to about that point, and then it's hard to push in. So yeah, maybe this tree isn't as tall as I thought. It looks a lot taller from the ground than it does from here. So here's one of the limbs that broke off. It just lost its elasticity, I suppose. Probably broke off in wind. But oaks are one of the species that are prone to this phenomenon known as sudden limb drop. And they don't know completely how it happens, but some people think it happens because of like changes in the moisture. Like the humidity changes. Like it can happen even though there's no wind. When you're on a spot like this and your knee ascender or your foot ascender is having a hard time, or your main ascender, you gotta create a little bit of space off of it and get that device to get past the bulge. Just gonna back off a little bit. Once you're past it, you can go back to hugging the trunk like a scared little pup. I think I'm done with the ascenders. All right, now spiking into trees that have sapwood decay is a little bit of a technique. I mean, it's a little bit of a learned feeling, I suppose, because your spikes will definitely pop on out. So you kind of have to poke around, look for a nice solid spot in the wood. But I don't want to be on this side. I want to be on the positive side. Even though my rope is wanting me to go that way, I'm gonna kind of stay on this side for a minute. Let's take another reading on this side of the tree. Yeah, it feels really solid. Yeah, that feels nice. Another thing you can look at is the crown, and you know, if you've got like fine twig formation, like notice this leader has been dead longer than this one above me. The one above me died more recently. The one below me, I'm sorry, the one in front of me has been dead a lot longer. There's no fine twig structure on the one in front of me. There's fine twig structure on the one above me. So that's a good sign as well. I like that. I will say this, I probably should mention this. Oh man, these Buckingham straps, they are really, the Velcro, golly, the Velcro needs to be replaced on these suckers. That thing just came right on off. Anyway, I'll say this, I should say this at the beginning of the video as well, that I would not have climbed this tree had it not been for a nice inspection of the flare. The flare looks nice and solid, but like there's plenty of hazardous trees that I've been in, and I always have some kind of risk mitigation associated, whether it's, you know, another tree to tie off to that's taller, or at least as tall as my objective and close enough, or it is, you know, a crane or something. Some trees, you know, I just am not going to do it. But this one had a nice healthy flare, and that's the most important, like, foundational structural consideration, is a good flare. All right, so I felt comfortable enough, even though I don't really like it, but it should be plenty strong. The main thing with hardwoods
Oak is a, you know, a hardwood deciduous tree. Well, the main thing with them is that they happen to have white rot. They typically are attacked by white rot, whereas conifers are typically attacked by brown rot. And brown rot deteriorates cellulose, leaving the lignin intact, and the lignin is a brown color, that's why it looks brown. White rot is the opposite. It deteriorates lignin, leaving the cellulose more intact, although both rots do attack both. But it's important to understand that brown rots are typically considered more dangerous than white rots because it's better to have more cellulose intact if you had to choose. So, I hope this is making sense. This tree has a white rot, meaning that its cellulose is a little bit more intact and it's a little bit more flexible, even though it's dead. Obviously, it's still not ideal, but there's a lot of things to consider, and you just have to decide what you're willing to risk at the end of the day. Every tree is hazardous. Arguably, the dead ones are, in a sense, safer because you're more aware of everything. You're like hyper focused. Whereas sometimes, you know, when I got hurt, it was on an easy tree. It was on a perfectly healthy tree, and I just was not thinking, and I was careless, and I accidentally clipped into the wrong side of my SRT anchor, clipped into that retrieval side by accident, and I went up about 30 or 35 feet, and then all of a sudden it released. A lot of resistance on that one. Let's try this one as a comparison. I mean, that one's still got a fair bit of resistance. Oh, it just went totally through right there. So I can definitely tell a difference in this leader. This leader's a lot less safe than this one. This is just one technique. One technique to kind of assess what you're doing as you're going. I've heard my friend Nick said that he will use his chainsaw and kind of go through like that sometimes. Like sort of plunge in a ripping plane and assess those chips. I wouldn't want to plunge like in that kind of plane because you're taking out a lot more wood that way. But yeah. We're going to advance our DDRT line. Really, the main thing here is going high enough to make small cuts, because small cuts create less motion and rocking and swinging than the big cuts. Like, you might be tempted to get this high up in a dead tree and just be like, I don't want to go any higher, I'm going to cut it right here. But that ironically might be more dangerous because you're going to have a humongous amount of vibrations going through the tree as you do that, and it might be enough to make something snap. So the dead trees, in some cases, it's counterintuitive. They might be safer to go a little bit higher, cut them smaller. Now, rigging off of dead trees is like, that's another level altogether. And I really don't like to rig off of dead trees unless I have another tree to escape into, personally. Or, you know, a crane. A crane will do it. What we need to get, Jane, we need to get a helicopter. A helicopter to rig off of. Come on. There we go.
Let's transfer into this one. Cut it a little bit smaller. Something to think about with these, if they could suddenly break out, you don't want to be attached to them. You want to be able to come out of them. If this whole limb were to start breaking out with me in it, I want to be able to just pull this and let it slip right off the end of my lanyard. So I cleared the stopper knot in my lanyard for this. That is a super important consideration. Nice and easy. We already found that this one is getting hollow inside there when we drilled on it. Oh boy. You would not believe the carpenter ants, Jane. Holy cow. I just went through a hornet's nest of carpenter ants. Dang. All right, well, anyway, I don't want to really go any higher, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this steel snake. I call it a steel snake. It's just an AM steel blue sling. And I'm going to timber hitch it like this. Go through the eye and then choke it and then kind of timber hitch it back on itself. What this is going to do is it's going to protect me from something called an inverse barber chair or inverted barber chair. I don't know if that's the official term in the book. I've tried to find out about this. I haven't found many people talking about it, but it's basically when the wood wants to split. You know how a barber chair works, I'm sure. If you don't, you should go learn what a barber chair is. But anyways, barber chair is, you know, splitting up that way. An inverted barber chair is when it wants to split down this way, and I'm lanyarded to that, and I don't want to be pulled like crazy like that. So that's what this tie is going to help protect. You don't need this if you're doing small cuts, but you definitely should have it if you're doing big cuts, especially ones that are leaning. Now, this one's not the worst one in the world, but since it's dead, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Nice. Look at all those ants. Dang, they're mad.
Well, that's it for part 1 of this removal video. Be sure to check out part 2 for all the things that started to go wrong. Humbling experiences for me. Hope that people can learn from my mistakes. All right, guys, stay safe.